Hello and welcome to Alaska's Political Pipeline. I'm reporter Wil Courtney. As of recording, the day is of November 6th and the time is 1:10. Joined with me, I have Senator Dan Sullivan from Washington, D.C. Senator, we have a lot of news today and I don't want to keep your time held up. So let's just kind of start with what I'm hearing for airfare here in Alaska. Ted Stevens is among 40 airports reducing flights by 10%. Tell me a little bit about what this means for the state.
Well, Will, it's a real problem, but let me first thank you for coming out to Western Alaska with me and those federal officials to see the damage to those communities after the typhoon. It was really important that you guys brought a whole team out there so Alaskans could see that damage. So I just want to begin by thanking you and expressing my appreciation. Look, that announcement is a really problematic announcement. Now, it's all about safety. You know, we got a briefing on this. I'm on the Commerce Committee, that they're doing these reductions in major airports, including Anchorage, including Seattle, because our FAA workers are tired. They're not getting paid. And again, we've now gone into the longest shutdown in American history. This is the most unnecessary, useless shutdown I've ever seen in my career here. We have voted now, Will, 14 times to reopen the government. By the way, a bipartisan vote, Senate Democrats are voting with us. That would cure all these issues, not just air traffic control, FAA, the delays we're going to start seeing in airports, but SNAP, federal workers not getting paid. It would solve everything. And then, Will, you may have seen last week, the Senate voted on my bill and Senator Johnson's bill to at least pay federal workers who are required to work, like FAA workers, like TSA workers. Again, bipartisan group of senators, Democrats and Republicans, said that we should do that, but you need 60 here in the Senate. And Senator Schumer keeps pressuring his Democrat senators not to vote to reopen the government, not to pay federal workers who are working. And I'll tell you this, people are hurting. This is not a game. Senator Schumer again said that we are winning this shutdown. I have no idea who he's talking about when he says we, Alaskans, are hurting. Federal workers who are required to work and are not getting paid are hurting. SNAP beneficiaries are nervous. All of this could be cured by just voting for the clean, bipartisan continuing resolution, or at least my bill and Senator Johnson's bill to pay federal workers who are required to work. There's nothing more American than paying someone to work, and yet Senator Schumer, and unfortunately too many of his Democratic Senate colleagues, won't do that. Schumer's clearly scared of his far left wing in his party. That's why he's doing this, and it's shameful. So we need to fix it.
And can you explain a little bit, I understand where you're coming from with the government shutdown. I have a lot of questions about that too. But for Alaskans who may not understand what that 10% means, and even for us, and we're trying to get an understanding of what 10% looks like, do you have any kind of insight that maybe we don't have yet about what that 10% looks like here in the state?
Well, look, it's based on safety, right? And the FAA is based on safety, and that's what we want. You saw that UPS airplane crash the other day. That's horrifying. A lot of people were killed in that. We want safe skies. As a matter of fact, the budget reconciliation bill that we passed has tremendous reforms and a lot of money, especially for Alaska, for more safety in our skies. So the Secretary of Transportation and the FAA administrator today made this announcement, and it's based on safety. You have, again, Will, you have FAA officials who are required to work, of course, who aren't getting paid. Some aren't coming into work. Some are having to go, do Uber jobs to get paid. So all of this, so it's going to delay flights. There's no doubt. Airlines are already talking about canceling a certain number of flights. That's going to disrupt travel across America, across Alaska. But let me go back to the point. There's a real easy fix. Vote for the bipartisan continuing resolution. 14 times, we just voted on it again yesterday. Bipartisan in the Senate right now, but we need 60. We need some courageous Democrats to do the right thing, and they know what the right thing is. Trust me, I talked to a lot of my Democrat colleagues. They're frustrated, not with us, not with President Trump. they're frustrated with their own leader, Chuck Schumer. So hopefully they can do that. And by the way, Will, right now I am working with a bunch of Democrat senators and Republican senators. We're going to bring another bill to the floor tomorrow, an appropriations bill. We have about 10 Democrat senators who I've been in contact with who are saying they're looking to vote for that, to reopen the government. This would be an extension of the date of the continuing resolution with some appropriations bills. It's a good opportunity. But right now we're hearing Senator Schumer is trying to pressure these Democrats not to vote for it. It is truly maddening, and people are hurting. And I'm kind of baffled. I can't believe a Senate leader put politics over people the way in which Senator Schumer is clearly doing.
Sure. Let's talk about the government shutdown. Obviously, that was a big topic of the breakfast that you were at with the president yesterday, where he said that government shutdown has cost elections. Obviously, we're seeing somewhat of a blue wave in cities like New York City, in Virginia, in California. So tell me a little bit about what happened after the press left the room. What did the president tell senators like yourself?
Well, I think it was reported the president talked about the filibuster, and look, I understand his frustration. I'm frustrated. He's frustrated. Because remember, the filibuster is this fancy word. What it essentially means is that in the Senate, the rule is that it requires 60 senators to move pretty much anything, with the exception of a few kind of bills like budget reconciliation. But to move a budget bill, you have to have 60 votes. That typically means you need Republicans and Democrats to vote for it. He's frustrated. I'm frustrated. Democrat senators are frustrated because remember, a lot of them are voting with us, but we haven't gotten to 60 yet. So the president talked about this idea of getting rid of that rule. That rule has been around in one form or another since literally the founding of the Republic. It makes the Senate different from the House. But I'll tell you this, we don't have the votes to get rid of that 60 vote rule, to get rid of the filibuster. And for Alaskans, that rule has been really important to us. Why? The national Democrats in the Senate, in the House, in the White House, we saw it with Joe Biden, we certainly see it with Chuck Schumer. Their goal is to shut down Alaska. If we didn't have the filibuster, trust me, Alaska would be one giant national park right now with no economy at all.
So would you vote to terminate the filibuster?
The 60 vote threshold in the Senate as a rule has done more to keep the Alaska economy humming and prevent us from being shut down by national Democrats. So I have been a supporter of that rule. And again, I don't think we even have anything close to having the votes on that. Where we should focus, Will, is not on getting rid of the filibuster, although I totally understand the president's frustration. I share it. It's getting our Democratic colleagues to help us get to 60 votes to just open the government. The American people, the Alaskan people, want the government open. Too many people are hurting. And now you're starting to see air traffic travel being disrupted. All of this could be fixed tonight or tomorrow here in the Senate if we just had 8 Democrat senators join the 3 who have already joined us and vote to reopen the government. That's what the American people want. That's what the vast majority of Alaskans want.
Sure. And you said that you share the president's frustration with the filibuster. I mean, the president doesn't have the ability to terminate the filibuster. You do as a sitting U.S. senator. Is that something you would support if it landed on the bench?
No.
You would not support terminating the filibuster?
No.
Why is that?
I just told you. I just explained. I think the 60 vote threshold in the Senate has done more to keep Alaska's economy from being turned into a national park. Again, if the National Democrat Party, even the senators I serve with right now, led by Senator Schumer, had power, and they've had power over the years, one of their top goals is to crush Alaska's economy. Look what Joe Biden did when he had 4 years in office. 70 executive orders exclusively focused on Alaska, almost all to undermine our economy, to kill jobs, and they did a really good job of killing jobs. So no, I think that the 60 vote threshold in the US Senate has saved Alaska from being shut down by National Democrats over many, many years, and I think it's been an important component for our state and the well-functioning of the Senate.
And then SNAP funds here in Alaska, 66,000 stand to lose those benefits. Now it's become a little bit of a mix between federal funds that the president has promised to partially fund, and then the state has also said they're going to get involved to some degree as well. We learned just before this conversation that a federal court judge told the president, or ordered the president rather, that SNAP needs to be fully funded come tomorrow, Friday. I'm curious your latest on that news.
Well, again, the quickest way to get SNAP funds to everybody throughout Alaska and America is to vote to reopen the government. I mean, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but all the issues you're talking about, paying our military, paying the air traffic controllers, paying TSA, making sure we have SNAP funds, every single one of these gets solved if there was a simple vote to reopen the government, which is what we've been trying to do. Again, I have a list here. This is an incredible list, Will. It's of all the different organizations and unions, and many of which are big Democrats supporting unions, like I would say the American Federation of Government, all the Airline Pilots Association. They're all saying, for goodness sakes, open the government. People are hurting. Like, it's a clean CR, it's bipartisan, it's nonpartisan. Just do that. That's what every leader has done. We did it 13 times when we were in the minority during Joe Biden's tenure as president. And Senator Schumer always voted for it then. Why they are wanting to keep the government shut down is a mystery to me. Well, it's actually not a mystery to me. He's doing it because the far left of his party is demanding it, and you can tell what they're saying. Their words are very disturbing to me. They're saying, like I said, we are winning. Right? I don't think anyone's winning from the shutdown.
Sure.
There was the number 2 Democrat in the House, the whip in the House. She said, "Hey, I know that families are going to suffer, but this is the only way we get leverage." Really? The American people are not pawns. So in terms of SNAP, I haven't seen that ruling. I think that the president had previously said they were going to abide by the ruling on SNAP, so I haven't seen the latest one. The issue on SNAP, though, as you probably know, Will, it's about $9 billion a month. That is the SNAP amount that goes out to Americans across the country. And there's about $3 billion left in their kind of reserve fund. Now, tomorrow, we are going to be bringing to the Senate floor 3 appropriations bills that we have already voted on. These are very, very bipartisan bills, and we're going to bring them to the floor again. This will solve the SNAP issue. And I think I've been working with a lot of Democrat senators across the aisle. There's a good chance that I think 10 of them will vote with us, which will essentially start the process of reopening the government. That's the hope. That was right before I went on the show with you. That's the hope. That's good news. The bad news is there's some reporting here in D.C. that Senator Schumer is trying to pressure them to vote against it. Again, I have no idea what he's trying to do, but I do know this. It's hurting Alaskans. It's hurting Americans. We need to open the government and quit using the American people as pawns.
Sure. And on SNAP, there is a soup drive happening right outside of your Anchorage office right now. And the organizers for that drive, this is a quote from them, and I'm curious your reaction to it. They said they're offering free soup as a sign of solidarity to those impacted by food insecurity and a rebuke of the callous attacks on critical service by Begich and senators like yourself and Lisa Murkowski. I'm curious how you react to that comment.
Well, look, what I did when the paycheck stopped, I stopped getting my paycheck. Right? So I'm trying to, show empathy with what's happening to our federal workers, and I think the best way, I know the best way to get SNAP going again is to don't protest our office, write Senator Schumer a letter and tell him to reopen the government. Look, everybody knows that's the answer. And that's the answer. I voted 14 times for SNAP. I'm going to vote for SNAP tomorrow. And because I've been voting to reopen the government with Senate Democrats, by the way. And we'll have more voting with us tomorrow. But the one guy who's making sure SNAP benefits are not getting to Americans is the leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate. And in my view, he's putting politics above the interest of Alaskans, and it's shameful. Never seen anything like it.
Sure.
Look, I got to roll. Will, you got one more?
Yeah, I got one more quick question. It's actually not quick, but I really think it's important to ask you this question. It's about that argument Democrats are making. That big holdout point seems to be those enhanced premium tax credits. That's why a lot of Democrats say they're voting the way they're voting right now. And you know, I went to the Kaiser Family Foundation. They have a calculator about how those premium tax credits affect Alaskans. And I just ran a few numbers for the average 35-year-old who makes $50,000 a year. Their insurance for a silver plan more than doubles. For someone who makes who's 35 years old, makes $80,000 a year. Their insurance just shy of doubles. And then when I ran something for two 35-year-olds and two kids who make $80,000 a year, their insurance more than triples. That's the holdout point that these Democrats are making. Do you support extending enhanced premium tax credits?
Well, look, Obamacare, as you've seen, we have the highest premiums in the country. So Obamacare has not worked. The subsidies have driven up these costs. They go directly to the insurance companies. And if you remember, the Democrats were the ones who put the end date on these subsidies right now. That was their call. Okay, so that's the true background. But I'm trying to work on, I'm again with a bipartisan group of Republicans and Democrats and even some folks in the White House on looking to reform these subsidies. There's been a lot of fraud in them, and work to bring down the healthcare costs, which are way too high. We have the highest healthcare costs in Alaska, the highest premium costs in Alaska. That's been driven by the failed Obamacare policies and the cliff that we're talking about right now was put in place by Senate Democrats, right? So, but to answer your question, I am working very diligently on reforms and extensions to these subsidies, and I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to get there. One final thing, Senate Majority Leader Thune, President Trump, the Speaker of the House, they've all said, of course we'll have negotiations on this. Let's open the government, quit holding people as hostages, and let's get those negotiations and discussions going. So
sure.
The whole idea of saying that we're going to take the entire government hostage and hurt people along the way, which is happening right now, until they get exactly what they want. Remember, Will, the Democrats' continuing resolution that they were voting on, that they said they want, was an increase of $1.5 trillion. It was going back to letting illegals have Medicaid, which no Alaskan agrees with. And it would get rid of the $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund that I got in the budget reconciliation bill. That is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars to Alaska healthcare, Alaska hospitals. That's going to strengthen our healthcare system. I was the author of doubling that fund from 25 to 50 billion. And Senator Schumer and the Democrats are saying, as the way to reopen the government on healthcare, they want to get rid of that entire thing. No way. That is going to be really important for Alaska. So I am not only ready to negotiate, I am working right now with senators on both sides of the aisle on the very issue you talked about, the Obamacare subsidy extensions, but there's going to need a lot of reforms, and the importance of bringing down the high cost of healthcare, under which Obamacare has completely failed, is something I'm continuing to work on.
So to be clear about your argument, just to make sure I'm clear, you're not buying the argument Democrats are making that right now is the time for these premium tax credits, because it expires in December, right? So, I mean, the turnaround is going to be pretty steep if, you know, come the end of the shutdown, let's say it's this month, come the end of the shutdown, I mean, things need to move fast if these premiums are going to be reinstated, which you said you support.
That's why they should have voted to open the government 37 days ago.
So you think that needs to
Thanks,
be
Will.
handled outside of the shutdown?
Correct. That's what we've
Okay.
been saying the whole time, and we'll do it.
Awesome. Senator, thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it.
Good to see you again. Thanks.
Likewise. Take care. Thank you for listening to Alaska's Political Pipeline. If you like what you listen to, consider rating the podcast and giving us a follow. We'll be back in your feeds again next Monday, but in the meantime, thanks again for tuning in, and please, take care.